Hi everybody, I'm Bob Rager, and I want to welcome you back to Amsterdam Writers Platform. We are on our way to the cool part of Amsterdam, the new cool part of Amsterdam, Amsterdam North, what some people are calling the Brooklyn of Amsterdam. We're going over to Amsterdam North because we're going to stop at the Int AWP. This company that was founded in 1922 when shipbuilding moved over to this part of the city, by the 1950s, it was the biggest shipyard in Europe. But things changed, and in the 1980s, this company went bankrupt. Since then, the city of Amsterdam has captured this place to create a new space for freedom, for the freedom of the arts, for creativity, for festivals, for new businesses to establish themselves, for the particular freedom that this city has been so good at for centuries. We chose this location for today's program because we felt it represents the particular freedom, the spirit of Amsterdam, that our guest today is an expert on. Our guest today is a distinguished writer, a journalist, a frequent contributor to the New York Times, a poet as it happens, and for 6 years he was the director of the John Adams Institute, which is the literary and cultural institute in Amsterdam. He's also the author of this terrific book, Amsterdam, a history of the world's most liberal city. I'm delighted to welcome Russell Shorto.
Thank you,
Russell.
Thank you, Bob. What I find fascinating is how this kind of this new approach to individualism was spawned here and led to this empire, the great, the Dutch Golden Age. And then it spread. It spread basically all around the world. And one of the things I do in the book is spend some time, once I've kind of laid this whole thing out, then I follow some of the strands as it spreads around via England borrowing ideas, via ideas like Spinoza, who was the son of Amsterdam, via the Dutch colony of New Netherlands, which became New York. So there are all these ways that became just part of modernity. This is just what a modern city is. So now one of the problems Amsterdam has is this thing that was so special and unique and caused it to move to the forefront isn't special and unique anymore. In fact, it's what's considered normal. Yeah. So now, how does Amsterdam set itself apart? So one thing it has is that history. Yeah. And I think one thing that the city government has tried to do, as it sells, with this, what all cities are doing, they're trying to brand themselves, what's special about us, sure, is to package that history and to make that part of the brand. And whether it's coffee shops, so you can quasi-legally buy marijuana here. More and more places in the U.S. now you can buy marijuana. Gay rights, the world is catching up, and that's what it's. So you're a victim of your own success then, because gay rights. Okay, well, do you really need a gay hotel anymore? Because gay travelers
go to Amsterdam when they can go to any.
Right. So that's part of the the conundrum that the city's facing. In a way, the whole society, the whole culture, the way of thinking is built around that. And when you can do that, I've never taken a business course in my life, but I think that probably one of the things they teach you is how to, turn lemons into lemonade. You've got this communal activity. This group of people decides together, we're going to build dams, we're going to build dikes, we're going to manage the water.
This is not a choice.
They have to do it. Yeah, it's an act.
Floods in this country that killed thousands of people.
Yeah.
I've always admired how rich this country is, because if you look objectively at this country, it's still the swamp it was 1,000 years ago. It has virtually no natural resources. Oh. They discovered some natural gas 30 years ago, but that's not. 40 years ago, that's not. It was not historically so.
They make this communal act.
Yes.
And once they've done that, then they start to make profits. They learn that this is you can be successful, and they start to get rich as individuals.
Yes.
But they know they still, and I would say that the Dutch, by and large, still have this thing in balance where they know that individual success is tied to the collective. And I think that Americans have this idea in their heads that they're all cowboys, they're all individuals.
You see it playing out now in California, rich towns, poor towns. Who gets the water?
Yeah,
How
sure.
do we control the water? Should we tax it? Should they pay more? Should we just restrict it? And they're struggling with this because something in the American DNA says, if I can afford it, I have the right to buy it.
Yeah. The Dutch, their water management expertise is now in demand everywhere in the world because with global warming and sea levels rising, everybody, in a sense, is now in the position that the Dutch were in 1,000 years ago. So you just in post-Hurricane Sandy of a couple of years ago in the Northeast in the U.S., that whole region around New York City, they're suddenly, very keen on Dutch expertise, and not just expertise in the sense of, what's the strongest dam, but a way of thinking. How do we change our way of thinking? And that's the question. Will they accept it? Will individuals, can you, and not just at the individual person level, but municipalities. Municipalities in the U.S. have this, a strong municipal sense of autonomy. So, I did an article from the New York Times about this where you're in towns in Long Island, and they're saying we're building this, very clever breakwater along the beach. Well, the beach, their town line stops right there in the beach, and the next town keeps going, and that town isn't doing it. So you have to work together.
One of the keys to water management in this country is to letting the water in.
Knowing when to let it in.
You have to make sacrifices. You can make sacrifices. People are willing, I think, to make sacrifices if they have a general sense that it'll be fair, that they're not going to get ripped off.
Right.
In an extremely individualistic society, you don't have any sense that someone's going to compensate you for your loss, that judgments are going to be fair. It might be harder to pull that off, and we shall see.
Yeah, that's what, and I was with the Room for the River project in the eastern part of the country, in Nijmegen, and how they, because the river bends there, and so they have this problem with flooding in the river. That's the access, the kind of industrial highway, so to speak, into Germany, but they've decided to strategically flood certain regions when it's necessary.
They must.
And that means that there are certain farmers who say, okay, well, my land will be underwater for a certain time of year.
And losers, but the losers will be compensated.
And how do you sell that in a place like the U.S. where people don't think that way? Right.
It's going to be, when people are fighting for their survival, they're going to have to shift their paradigm, perhaps. Shifting a paradigm is something that nobody ever really does. It's extremely difficult.
It's one thing to just buy a new technology. It's another thing to try to change your whole way of seeing things. Yeah.
Russell, we could talk for hours. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bob. It's lots of fun.
Fascinating. And I encourage all of you, go out, buy, and read this book, Amsterdam, a history of the world's most liberal city. And thank you all for joining us on Amsterdam Writers Platform.